It's a very warm welcome to all our viewers and welcome to a new edition of Africa Today, our program bringing you all the latest news and events happening inside the Black Continent. My name is Angie Meher and I'll be joining you for today's edition. And of course, today we'll be focusing and dedicating our episode to the 33rd Educational Symposium of the Armed Forces, which was held today, which marked, of course, Martyrs' Day, which falls every year on the 9th of March. During today's symposium, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi honored the names of a number of martyrs and their families in recognition of the sacrifices of their sons for the nation. He also honored the names and medical health workers and doctors who lost their lives during their work during the COVID-19 pandemic in isolation hospitals while serving their patients. The Armed Forces annually celebrates Martyrs' Day in memory of the former military chief of staff, Abdelmenam Riyad, who along with the members of his unit was targeted by the Israeli mortars in the 1969 war. Praising members of the military and police who sacrificed their lives for the country, President el-Sisi said Egyptians fully trust the capabilities and abilities of both the armed forces and the police in uprooting terrorism and bringing stability and security to the nation. We have more details in this report and we'll be right back to continue our coverage of Martyrs' Day. Stay tuned. The Armed Forces celebrate the Veteran, Warrior and Martyr Day on the 9th of March every year. It is in this day in 1969 that Lieutenant General Abdelmenam Riyad sacrificed his life for the sake of the nation. This day witnesses the Armed Forces celebration of the Egyptian martyrs who give the best examples in sacrificing their lives for the sake of their homeland. History has witnessed countless Egyptian martyrs since the invasion of the Hyksos, Tatars and Mongols. Egypt has been and will always be the shield of the whole region and the place where the invaders meet their fatal end. During the French campaign, the British occupation, Palestine War of 1948, Port Said tripartite aggression, the post-1967 attrition war and the glorious October War, Egypt has sacrificed her best youth who breathed their last breath for the sake of their homeland, symbolizing the deepest meaning of redemption and heroism. Egypt commemorates Martyrs' Day at a time when a number of martyrs of a brutal black terrorism had increased, reaping the lives of officers and civilians. The armed forces are keen to commemorate this anniversary in honor and gratitude of those martyrs who sacrificed their lives and their blood for the sake of their country. The increasing number of martyrs invokes their fellows to follow their steps with full determination. Therefore, Egypt has erected the Memorial of the Unknown Soldier in memory and appreciation of the glorious victory and its holders. It resembles a hollow pyramid and its 4 pillars are inscribed with 71 symbolic names of the martyrs. At the center of the base is a solid basalt cube representing a soldier's tomb. Every year, the president and top defense officials lay wreaths at the memorial and pay tribute to the sacrifices of those martyrs. The armed forces also erected a memorial for the martyrs of the 2nd Field Army and another for the October heroes of the 3rd Field Army and military defense and air forces and others from every part of Egypt. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by Mr. Abdul Latif Wahba, the journalist and our guest for this afternoon. A very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Abdul Latif. Now, of course, today Egypt and the armed forces marks Martyrs' Day, and we saw President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi delivering a speech marking this day. How did you read the president's address, and in your opinion, what are the main points that stood out?
I think it is, of course, an important event to Egypt. Especially President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi attended the event and inaugurated it. And it is the first time to celebrate not only the Martyrs' Day, but also the other classes from the Egyptian society that sacrifices also for the health of the people.
Yes.
You see, of course, when he appreciated and praised what the doctor did during the corona treatment,
yes.
who lost his vision, of course. But anyway, as you know that this event is important for Egypt, as the armed forces always remember their martyrs, celebrate the veteran warrior
yes.
of March of every year. This, as you know that in this day, in 1969, Egypt witnessed the death of Lieutenant General Abdelmanem Riyad,
yes.
who sacrificed his life for the sake of the nations. And I think also this day witnessed the armed forces celebrations of the Egyptian martyrs who give the best example in sacrifices their life for the sake of the homeland.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Mr. Abdel Latif, let's talk a bit about the importance of this day commemorating the Egyptian martyrs who, as you said, sacrificed their lives for the nation. The importance of this day for their families. How important is it?
Yeah, of course. This is a significant also day for
yes.
the families themselves. Why? Because the president and the presidential administration didn't forget also their sacrifices, as not only for their the men who lost them, but also they supported the Egyptian government in their endurance, in their effort, in their work for taking care of their new generations and so on. This is an example for the Egyptian families at the same time.
Yes.
And as you know, it is a very passionate vision when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi bosomed their child and their kids. This is important and symbolic for the Egyptian society at the same time.
Yes.
That the Egyptian government and the Egyptian administrations will not forget their rule and their sacrifices, and because they sacrifice by themselves for the sake of the Egyptian people,
yes.
for the sake of the Egyptian stability,
yes.
and also for the others to live in peace and stability.
Absolutely. Mr. Abdel Latif, speaking about the sacrifice that you were talking about, the president spoke about the period from 2011 to 2015, saying that there were attempts to take down the country, reiterating that the army also sacrificed during this time, siding with the people. How do you see the importance of the mention of this specific sacrifice in that critical period of time in Egyptian modern-day history?
Yeah, of course, as you know that the sacrifices from the Egyptian people is not only for the armed forces, it's not only for the police forces at the same time, but also for the Egyptian people who supported both, who supported the police and also the armed forces. In many aspects.
Yes.
We have a people keeping peace and keeping and protecting the Egyptian borders, and also we have another people who are protecting the inner and the domestic situations and so on.
Yes.
And on the other hand, we have the people who is working for generally for Egypt.
Absolutely. Also, we've seen, as you mentioned earlier, the president honoring some of the health workers and doctors who lost their lives and sacrificed their lives whilst taking care of their patients in isolation hospitals during the peaks of the COVID-19 pandemic. How important is this recognition, as it is a different kind of martyrdom, also a sacrifice for the people of this country?
You know that from the beginning of corona pandemic in Egypt,
yes,
we described them really, and we said they are the White Army.
Yes.
So their rule is completely like the other forces, like the police forces, like the armed forces, and so on. But the different situations is that the white forces, I mean, they are fighting unknown enemy.
Yes.
They didn't know it. They are still fighting, and so on. So it is an important image, and also when President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi called them and to praise their sacrifices for the Egyptian people.
Yes.
This is, of course, an important endeavors and the efforts like the other forces, like the police forces, like the armed forces, and so on. And without their rule, of course, we would suffer from the pandemic, as we mentioned that they are fighting unknown enemy.
Absolutely right. Mr. Abdel Latif Wahba, our journalist, I'd like to thank you very, very much, sir, for your time and your insight on today's edition of Africa Today. Ladies and gentlemen, a short break, and we'll be right back for more. Stay tuned.
ما أنا زعلان إني مش هشوف بابا تاني، وأنا بوعدكم جميعا إني هكبر وأكمل مشوار بابا وآخد حق بابا.
أنا لو ارتد إلي بصري 1000 مرة وخسرته 1000 مرة عشان خاطر مصر، والله العظيم أنا راضي.
كان واقف وقفة راجل ب100 راجل. بفخر بكل ان ابنها يستشهد.
بطل ان هو ضحى بدمه على ترابها عشان ما فيش واحد خاين يخش البلد دي.
قال لي انا هموت شهيد، قال لي بلدي دي عرضي، لو انا ما عرفتش احميها مش هعرف احميكي.
انا ما عيطتش دم على ابني كان قال لي لو استشهدت زغرتيني يا امي.
كان اللي موت ابني انت تعرفه، انت تعرفني، انت حرقت قلبي انا بس برضه قلبي مش هيتحرق، عشان لو كان معايا 10 كده مصر.
اللي بيدفعه كل شهيد أو مصاب هو وتد بيتحط من أجل مصر.
الشهيد البطل ما زال حياً.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and still with you and today's edition of Africa Today, covering, of course, the Martyrs' Day and the symposium which was attended by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, where he spoke about the very important role of the martyrs who sacrificed their lives and shed their blood for their homeland. Now we're delighted to be joined over the telephone by His Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, a very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Fine, thank you, and thank you very much for joining us, Your Excellency. Right, today the President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi delivered a word marking Martyrs' Day, and he spoke about the significance of remembering all the Egyptian martyrs over the years and the role that they have played in protecting their homeland. Could you tell us a bit about the importance of this commemoration every year as it falls on the 9th of March?
For many reasons, but for a very simple reason,
yes,
that there isn't one single family in Egypt without having sacrificed one of its sons or grandsons. In my family, I have 3 persons during the wars who sacrificed their lives for their own country.
Yes.
A couple of them of my cousins, one in 1956, the other in the October War in 1973.
Yes.
And both of them are well commemorated in our city, Damietta, and in their own part of the army.
Yes.
So we remember them with all love and honor, and of course we are commemorating these memories in order to tell those who are still defending our country that we will never forget those who are fighting for their own country or those who are sacrificing their lives for our beloved country.
Absolutely.
This is very important, and it's a good message for the young generation to tell them that we are there, that their country will remember always all those who are working for their country, especially those who sacrifice their lives for their own country.
Absolutely. Your Excellency, Ambassador Gamal, could you tell us a bit about the history behind this day, why this day was specifically chosen to mark a Martyrs' Day?
This is a very important day because it is the day of one of our big General Abdel Menem Riyad sacrificed his life at the very front place of our army. And this means that our victims are not only soldiers or officers. It is big leaders of the army. And Abdel Menem Riyad, of course, we remember him as a big leader of Egypt. And now we are commemorating him by this day, and of course all those who sacrificed their lives. We have in the middle of Cairo a square named after his name.
Yes.
And all our people who sacrificed their lives, we are commemorating them here and there. You can find the names all over Cairo and other cities also.
Yes.
This is very important, and of course our big general who sacrificed his life during the war, of course, he's a good example how that the generals, the big leaders, did not hesitate to sacrifice their lives within their army and surrounded with the officers and soldiers.
Yes, indeed. Ambassador Gamal, now we've also seen how the President noted that between 2011 and 2015 there were attempts to take down the Egyptian nation, and he said he witnessed as well the role that the armed forces played in protecting the country, as well as how other countries could be destroyed very specifically because of such attacks.
As a matter of fact, our president is keen to build a very strong Egypt and the Egyptian army. At the same time, he's stressing that this army is to defend us. It's not to attack anybody or to be something to annoy any other. This means that Egypt is a very strong country, and it used its strength to for peace and stability and development.
Yes.
Same time that the president, I am a witness that he is very keen to ask about those families who lost their beloved persons. And he asked me personally in one of these occasions if I have victims in the war. And I told him that I have a couple of them in the wars, and my brother helping our army in some other places. So it's very good that the top leader of the country is there and we are seeing on the screen that he's talking to the families in order to tell them that we are there.
Yes.
They lost their beloved ones, but we are there in order to be sure that Egypt will never forget their families and their
sons. Absolutely. Now, Ambassador Bayoumi, on Saturday, President Sisi approved Law 4 for 2021, which amended some articles of Law 6 for 2018, which honors martyrs and victims, as well as the missing and injured of war and security operations and terror attacks and their families. Could you tell us a bit about what this law stipulates?
It is widening the circle of those who are remembered by their country, and it's very good. We want to tell everybody who is working for this country and being a victim of any operation that we shall never forget them, that the country is seeing all the parties who participated in the defense of this country.
Yes.
And it is simply to widen those category of people to give another message that Egypt will never forget its sons and daughters.
Absolutely. One final question, sir, if I may now. The Egyptian army is very unique, specifically with its mentality. We've seen the more martyrs that are lost to the wars, the more that their brothers and colleagues in the army are not hesitant or afraid to follow in their brothers' footsteps. How important is this? How does this classify the Egyptian army, specifically since it is one of the top 10 strongest armies in the world?
Because it is simply, like you said, it is the oldest country in the world. It is the oldest army in the world. And I was just revising a PhD at Cairo University a few months ago about the story of the Egyptian diplomacy. The Egyptian diplomacy started 2,000 years BC. When our leader, Ahmose, he went with the Egyptian army to Syria to defend it against the attack of foreigners. When Salah ad-Din went to defend Jerusalem from the Crusaders, when Gamal Abdel Nasser did whatever he did, and Sadat, we remember all of these leaders and people who defended this country. This is a good message also, and I hope that we continue commemorating these occasions, because it gives our young generation an occasion to study our history and to be proud that we belong to a country which its history is a sort of honor to all of us, and we continue in this direction all the time.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank you very, very much, Your Excellency, Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and for your insight. And another short break, and we'll be right back to continue. Ladies and gentlemen, do stay tuned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by Dr. Mustafa Tamam, the political analyst. Dr. Mustafa, very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. Now, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi today attended the Armed Forces celebration marking Martyrs' Day, honoring their families, as well as confirming anew that the nation appreciates their role and their sacrifices in defending their country. How do you see the importance of this commemoration, and what does the President want to reveal by specializing a day for the martyrs and specifically honoring their families, whether it's their wives, children, or mothers and fathers?
Well, certainly this is something, a very important message which the President sends to all Egyptians, that these martyrs, and they have lost their lives in order to save our country from a lot of threats. So certainly they deserve to be compensated and recognized.
Yes.
And certainly their families have lost one of their members. So certainly it is a gesture from the President that shows that these are have given their lives for our safety and for our security of the majority of our Egyptian citizens.
Yes.
And again, it gives recognition that these people are considered heroes,
absolutely,
you see, and that they should be recognized every year.
Yes, indeed. Dr. Mustafa, now, how do you see this occasion as really embodying the national spirit of patriotism of really the staunch Egyptian armed forces who have made many sacrifices for their country to defend its security throughout history, really?
Certainly, it's only not only the armed forces, the police also.
Of course, yes.
Both armed forces and police, the security men, have given their lives in order to that the country maintains its security. Mm-hmm. Certainly, this is also a message for the whole world that it gives an image that we are caring for these people, and we're considering that they have sacrificed their lives in order to maintain the security. Again, it's a message for everyone, every citizen, that he's responsible. It's not only the armed forces and the police. If any citizen sees any unusual event or something that that threatens the security of the country, he should report that immediately. So certainly, this is a message that everyone is actually responsible for the security of the country.
Indeed, absolutely. We've also seen today the President speaking about the threats, the different kinds of threats that could face any nation, and he also took time to honor the health workers, the medical practitioners, doctors, nurses, etc., who were also martyred during the performance of their tasks and jobs in isolation hospitals during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, to what extent was it important to give these different kind of martyrs a mention in today's address?
Well, certainly these martyrs are not different than the one we just mentioned, yes. Because the threat of the COVID-19 was worse than a terrorist organization, which is recognized. You see, when you're fighting terrorism, sometimes you know where are these terrorists. But the COVID-19 actually, unfortunately, attacked people from all categories. You see. And we had sacrifices from doctors and nurses which lost their lives in order that Egypt maintains its health security. And fortunately, we've been able to maintain it, taking in consideration that unfortunately a lot of people do not maintain the measures that are required by the government, which as keeping a distance between people and wearing the cover, you see, the medical cover and all other aspects which are very, very important. Mm-hmm. Taking all this into consideration, Egypt is considered one of the countries that have been less affected by this disease, and certainly this is due also to the efforts of the Ministry of Health and the state that gives a lot of support in this respect.
Absolutely. Now, we've also seen the Egyptian state paying tribute to the martyrs in different kinds of ways. We have seen lots of memorials that have been erected all around the country, streets renamed, we've seen also lots of tombs and lots of specific places that have certain names attached to martyrs who have sacrificed their lives for the nation. How important is it, in your opinion, Dr. Mustafa, to inaugurate these areas, to continue in the remembrance of our martyrs, even if it's as simple as renaming a street after one of them?
Well, this is very important. You have mentioned a very important point. Certainly, we should consider not only certain categories of martyrs, you see, because there are a lot of others that have sacrificed for the nation.
Yes.
And certainly I'm sure that the President is going to consider that, taking into consideration that these people have lost their lives in order to secure the safety of the country. So certainly I think that there be a memorial for different categories of martyrs that have lost their lives in this respect.
Absolutely. Now, we've also seen on another social level, lots of Egyptian television series and dramas and films depicting the lives of Egyptian martyrs and how they sacrificed their souls for the country in honor of the nation. How important do you see this different aspect of commemorating our martyrs?
This is a very important point, the role of the media. We'll have to discuss the role of the media. The role of the media is quite important, and I think they're doing an excellent job. You see, it's not only television, it's so through newspapers, through broadcasts, through TV programs. So all this, they focus on the sacrifices, and because certainly a lot of people probably do not read the papers, so probably the television is considered a sort of effective communication in order to send the message to everyone to show the sacrifices that has been taken by various categories of these martyrs.
Indeed. Now, we've also seen Egypt really witnessing countless Egyptian martyrs. We've seen lots of names over the years. What lessons do martyrs, for example, like Mohammed al-Mansi, for example, who was recently embodied in a series, how do they really embody the lessons of the whole issue of martyrdom and sacrifice, especially for the younger and new generations?
Certainly, this is very important because it gives a role model to a lot of people. What really happened, you see, it gives a real life situation picture of the situation.
It really makes it more real, really.
That's true. So certainly that shows the threat that has been encountered by these martyrs and how they encountered them and how they fought in a courageous manner. Certainly it gives a more clear picture showing the threats and the problems and the sacrifices and the courageous atmosphere that has been taking place in fighting terrorism.
Absolutely. Do you agree that these patriots have really added weight to the glory and pride of all the Egyptian national registries and will remain a source of pride even for all the future generations?
Definitely, yes. They'll be a role model for future generations, and probably will be a very important thing that a lot of people will imitate these models in order to fight terrorism.
Do you think the more we speak about our Egyptian martyrs, whether they are from the army or the police forces or even medical practitioners in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, the more embodied that people become, the more courageous that they become in their fight, whether it's in any field really, to protect their national security?
Definitely. Certainly, by magnifying all these cases in the media or different sorts of medias, certainly it will give a positive reinforcement to people to be more courageous and to defend their country in a professional manner.
Absolutely. Right. I'd like to thank you very much, Dr. Mustafa Tamam, our political analyst and our guest for this afternoon. Thank you very, very much, sir, for your time and your insight. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up today's edition of Africa Today. We do hope you have enjoyed it. You're in the company of myself and Jumeir. Many thanks for watching.